Imagine you're offered a choice, a guaranteed $50 or a 50/50th chance of getting $100 or nothing. Most people would choose the guaranteed $50. It's safer, right? Now, let's flip it. You're faced with losing $50 for sure, or a 50/50 chance of losing $100 or nothing. This time, many would take the gamble. Why? That's where prospect theory comes in. Prospect theory, developed by Kahneman and Amos Tversky, explains how we make decisions when faced with risk and uncertainty. It's not about pure logic. It's about how our brains actually work. It suggests that we don't treat gains and losses equally. Losses hit us harder than equivalent gains. That $50 loss feels much worse than the satisfaction of a $50 gain feels good. Think about it this way. Losing $10 feels far worse than gaining $10 feels good. It's a fundamental part of human psychology. This isn't just some abstract idea. It affects everything from how we invest our money to the choices we make in our daily lives. This difference in how we feel about gains and losses is at the heart of prospect theory. It's not about the total amount of money, but how we perceive those changes. A $100 gain seems less impressive after a $200 gain, but a $100 loss after a $200 gain seems devastating. The theory uses a concept called value function, which shows how we weigh potential gains and losses. This curve isn't a straight line. It's steeper for losses than for gains. This means the pain of a loss is felt more intensely than the pleasure of an equivalent gain. A small loss can feel devastating, whereas an equivalent gain may only bring a small sense of satisfaction. Another key part of prospect theory is framing. How a choice is presented drastically changes how we make decisions. For instance, a doctor might say a treatment has a 90% success rate, which sounds much better than saying it has a 10% failure rate. Both statements mean the same thing, but the framing alters our perception and makes us more likely to choose the treatment when framed positively. Consider buying a car. One dealership might advertise a $2,000 discount. Another might advertise the price as $18,000. The discount makes it seem like you're saving money, which is psychologically more appealing than just seeing the price. This demonstrates how framing influences how we see a deal, even though both scenarios are identical. Prospect theory is also deeply connected to how we perceive risk. We tend to be risk-averse when it comes to gains, preferring a sure thing even if it means a smaller reward. But we become risk-seeking when it comes to losses, willing to gamble to avoid a sure loss, even if it means a greater potential loss. That's why we might take a chance to save money even if it involves greater risks. This risk-seeking behavior in the face of potential losses is a very common aspect of human decision-making. Think about insurance. We pay a premium to avoid a potentially huge loss, even though statistically, we might never need to file a claim. We're willing to accept a small certain loss, the premium, to avoid a larger uncertain loss, damage to our property. This behavior is directly related to the concepts of prospect theory. The implications of prospect theory are far-reaching. It shows how our emotions, not just logic, heavily influence our choices. It helps explain why we might make seemingly irrational decisions. For example, why people hold on to losing stocks for too long, hoping they'll recover, instead of cutting their losses. They're more sensitive to the pain of admitting a loss than to the possibility of further losses. Understanding prospect theory helps us appreciate how easily we're swayed by emotional responses rather than a clear-headed assessment of the situation. It's a powerful tool for understanding not just financial decisions, but also decisions related to health, relationships, and many other areas of life. It teaches us to be aware of the psychological biases that can cloud our judgment and lead us to make less optimal choices. By understanding how our minds work, we can make better decisions. Prospect theory isn't about predicting your exact choices, but helps explain why you make the decisions you do. By understanding the principles of loss aversion and framing, we can become more aware of how these biases might be affecting our judgments, helping us to make more rational and ultimately better decisions in various aspects of our lives. We are more likely to avoid making impulsive decisions based on emotions and make more thoughtful choices instead. It shows us that our perception of gains and losses is subjective, influenced by the context and how information is presented. So, next time you're facing a decision with uncertainty, remember the lessons of prospect theory and try to see the situation from a more objective perspective. Mitigating the impact of your emotional biases. By focusing on the objective reality of the situation rather than being swayed by the immediate emotional response, you can make more informed and rational decisions, leading to better outcomes in the long run. Learning to control these feelings is crucial to decision-making and a balanced life. It empowers us to approach our choices with a more strategic mindset. This is the power and practical value of prospect theory. It offers us a way to understand ourselves better and make better choices, creating a more fulfilling and successful life. Thinking about how you frame your decisions or those of others can drastically impact their effectiveness. It can be used in business decisions or even personal ones, like how you approach the idea of a big financial investment, for instance. So, it is vital to understand the concepts discussed in prospect theory, and we can use this knowledge to make better decisions.